Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. This is the Bass and Drum Clinic. Mike will be giving his presentation shortly. Drums, what do drums do? Just keep time and stay out of the way, right? Yes. Do whatever the bass player tells you. That sort of. Now, gosh, in 1 hour, it's probably gonna be more chit chat and demonstrate a little bit, but more interact, let you ask questions, play a little, talk about sounds, talk about blending, talk about what happens, because we really think like you get to see us do it, so want the classes to be really informational for you. So bear with us as we kind of get plugged in. I was watching Blues Council rather than being in here doing this. Are you guys getting this yet? This is coming off. The computer's running now. You should be getting something now. Yes, a click track. That's one side. Are we getting the other side? That's a bummer. Okay. Well, let's see if we're getting this metronome. Why does it sound like that? It shouldn't sound like a pop. Let me try something else. Yeah, there's something wrong with that DI. You should be getting music there. Yeah. You need more? Okay. Can we? Okay. Summing down. Getting that? Bow down as your people sing. We will rise with you, lifted on your wings, and the world will see that our God said. Okay. Can we get that in the monitor too? Can that be sent back to this monitor? Are you guys able to do that? Our God saves. There is hope in your name. Yeah, it is on. In the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Spirit, Lord, we come, gathered together to lift up your name, to call on our Savior, to fall on your grace. Hear the joyful sound of our offering as your saints bow down, as your people yeah, it's not coming up there. We will rise with you, lifted on your wings, and the world will see that. Okay. That's all right. Let's let that go. If we find it, it's not going to hurt us, I don't think. Okay. So, in my most humble approach to doing this is just like, I got caught up in watching the concert and didn't think about doing a sound check. I did come in earlier and tune the drums mic, so
Tiki Tiki Tom Tom. I did
Right on, dude.
I tuned the kit. But okay, bass and drums and worship. Let's dive in here and kind of make sure we answer questions and do what we're supposed to do. I think in what you're going to hear at any conference or hear, you know, amongst band players, session guys, touring guys, if you're doing it at all, I guess you're all playing in bands, right? How many people are playing in bands? Wow, see, everybody's doing it already. Who's just starting, trying to figure this out? Not playing in a band. Who's not playing in a band? Anybody? Okay, just a couple. Well, good. Well, that'll be happening soon. So here's the here's the deal. For any instrument, whether it's bass, drums, guitar, keyboards, vocals, flute, solo instruments, all of that, I think all of us always end up preaching the same sermon. And that's probably the old band rule, is that less is more. And for some of you that may feel like, oh, that's kind of painful. But don't be discouraged by that. I think the idea is, like, as we want to learn and as we're playing, yeah, there's a tendency, if you really love an instrument, you tend to want to kind of just pour out everything you got, right? You want to express yourself. But really, in a band context, like what Mike and I do with any group, is always just foundational stuff. Simple, simple, simple. Any of you could play this. Well, maybe. And not to sound trite, and I don't take light what we do, but you know, all these guys, what makes a really proficient band sound great, or they make it look easy, is the fact that they've really worked on the nuances of playing. I always use these two words, nuance and precision. Write that down. I know we don't have notes, but write down nuance and precision. Now, nuance just basically means knowing, like, everything about your sound, how it's working, how it's not working, and some of that is technical stuff too. And we're going to talk some about that. Mike will talk about, you're doing a bass class tomorrow too. I'm doing a separate drum class, but we'll relate it to how we function together. And a lot of what happens when Mike and I come together is the fact that we've already done our homework and we've got those individual things worked out. The details, like having our instruments set up good, having the drums tuned up. Like, yes, I did come in, I did do that much. I tuned up the kit because they were using it for some other stuff, and I want the drums to sound close to the way I want them to sound, or how it's going to work in the room. And that changes, yes, according to the room, and you want to kind of develop your ear to do that. The other thing about nuance, or the details, is like, as you're learning worship songs, don't try to do more with them than that's required. I hear this a lot, you know, like, man, I want to do this, I want to slap and pop, or I want to do these cool drum fills, and yeah, that is all well and good when it's called for, but 90% of modern worship is, you know, eighth notes and quarter notes. So it's this, you know. Right? So you all go like, I can do that. I can do that. Okay. The problem is that a lot of times we will hear a worship band, they think they're doing that, but it doesn't happen. So I just encourage you to be more detailed in how you work on your sound and how you interpret songs and so on. From the drum standpoint, what I'm listening to Mike, yes, sometimes it is locking in a pattern. That's something that's very common. The rule would be, like, if I play that pattern, the bass player is going to imitate that. If I'm playing 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and, the bass player is going to track with that. But what if Mike's playing like constant eighth notes? Like, which is so much of modern worship. I don't recommend that a drummer do unless you want to get fired, you know. Yeah, there's the monitor coming up now. That's great. You know what I mean? So there's the rule of, yes, copying or mimicking the pattern and getting that down, and that's a good thing to do. Or the drummer will frame, I call it framing. In other words, if he's doing that, I might be just playing straight. You know, he could play eighth notes. That gives him a lot of leeway to kind of like, he can change the feel. So drummers, I mean, man, don't be afraid to just let it hang wide open. I mean, I just learned that recently. We worked on a new record, and Paul was like, got this new song, and he didn't even want to hear N3. He says, dude, can you just give me half notes? I'm like, I didn't complain. Whine. Oh, okay, yeah, that feels good for what the rest of the band is doing. So anyway, it's really the nuance of being particular about the little stuff and not trying to do more with it. Do not become bored. Guard your heart against boredom, if I can say that.
Is that my DI?
Yeah, Mike, is your mic on? You want to say something about that?
No,
Is
we're
your
just
mic
trying to
working?
figure out if the bass is actually going.
Oh, okay. Is your mic working?
Yeah, it is.
So, thoughts on that, Mike, in terms of bass? Yeah, I hear it coming up. That's great.
I mean, yeah. As far as what Carl's saying, as far as like when we first start playing, we are looking at the kick drum the whole time and trying to match that. And there's a lot of room to deviate from that just as music develops and changes and gets a little bit more creative. I think that's a good rule to live by on some level, but I'm definitely not married to it. There's a lot more room to grow. Try to give you a good example of where we do that. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I got an example. Think about You Have Saved Us. No, hold on, let me remember this song. Oh, yeah. That's like a way more rhythmic bass part instead of playing. I don't even know what your kick pattern is on that. Right. So I am accenting some of those hits, but for the most part, just the bass alone is. So I am hitting a couple of those kick parts, but for the most part,
This is another good example of framing. It would be ridiculous for the kick drum to try to follow all that. And what he ends up doing is doing something super rhythmic that I can like subdivide between kick, snare, and hat. But again, the framing of it, the heavier notes is right. A microphone stand. Will this fit in there? You might have to put that holder on it, switch into that holder.
Or what's the other song? Today's the Day is another good example of that.
I play that one pretty straight, actually.
Yeah. Whereas
you want me to play the stems, or you just want?
Sure.
Let's play with the stems of that a little bit. See if that works with the setup we got here. Uh-oh. Can you turn the stems up in our... It doesn't like it very much.
Sounds like we're hitting you too hard.
Am I hitting you too hard? gain. Go ahead and turn it up. We're not getting it now. I hear it lightly. Doesn't like that. So that's not going to work. Try this.
Bush League. There you go. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just play along with today's. These are the stems without Paul, without the guitar. So you can hear the drum loops. I'm gonna stand there and hold it. It's okay. That's, if there's a will, there's a way. That's Yankee ingenuity right there. Here we go. One, two, three.
Where are we?
I need more. Turn up more. That's good right there. You guys don't mind it being loud, do you? That's good right there. So that's the drum loop, little keyboard thing happening. Bass part's more pattern. Chorus. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Okay. So here's just bass and drums from verse 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, here inside. All the heavens open. I'm casting the dead. So this is again the drums are framing. Perfect example of where the bass player has a lot more liberty. So I think bass players get to have more fun nowadays than drummers do, you know. That's not true. I love doing that. But again, in something like that, I'm not trying to get more active, but because it's just not needed, right? You have a drum loop. You got kind of time-based little delayed keyboard stuff, delayed guitars. This is all time-based stuff. So again, the drummers are kind of forced into this role of being super, super simple, but it's not trite. I mean, my parts... Chorus. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Today is the day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. I won't worry about it. Paul would have fired me for that drum fill right there. So again, it's like, what am I listening for? What are we doing? Really, when we're playing together, I'm just trying to make it feel good. Not worried about a lot of notes. We're not trying to, there's just no room to play a lot of notes. And this isn't the anti-chops class. We're just trying to be realistic.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Yeah,
Bass
listen to
thoughts?
any, like if you just dive into most records, in regards to this, I'll speak for the bassists, the spots where there's a fill or passing tones are pretty well thought out. It's not just, for the most part, they're locking it in and being consistent and trying to get each note to feel good, as opposed to, I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, I can play eighth notes. Well, can you actually play them in time? And you'd be surprised if you put yourself on a grid, like in the studio, and see where you're landing versus a click. It's pretty humbling. I mean, it's humbling for me to this day. You think you've got it dialed in, you go, wow, my muscle memory I need to work on that a little bit more, because you drift. You start to rush you usually rush your changes. It's pretty common. It's like when you're going to another note, and if you throw a passing tone in there somewhere, you'll see you really rush. So just being able to get stuff solid, where when you throw in a passing tone or you have a fill, it just locks right in. And then for the breadth of the song, you're like really dialed in to not rushing and sticking with the kick and feeling good, making it feel good, making your notes consistent.
Are you listening to kick drum patterns as much as just feeling the time?
So, I mean, yes, very much so. I'm listening to the kick. That's, if I were dialing my in-ear mix, being that there's open mics on stage, normally I don't need much of the overheads, but usually I'm looking for kick and snare for sure, just so I can be dialed into the backbeat and hat. Most of the time I'm close enough to Carl that my vocal mic picks up plenty of just the kit sound. But if I didn't have an open mic in front of me and I didn't sing, I was just playing bass, I'd definitely have kick, snare, and hat would be my priority in my mix, in addition to click.
Yeah, even if you're playing in small settings like little churches or little rooms, no matter where we're at, whether like if we were doing church in here, the whole dynamic thing would have to change, definitely. I mean, we would never play that song that loud in here.
Right.
It would be more like, if Paul's standing literally in front of me,
right.
I mean, it would never be the velocity.
I probably wouldn't be using a pick either.
I mean, we'd be more... Today is the day you have made. I will rejoice. Now you think, well, that is so not fun. Well, sure it is. You know, you can't think of dynamics as being like more expressive or more soulish than, you know what I mean? If you're playing soft, then play soft with drama, with passion. Don't be lame when you play anything. Like when we play little rooms, we adjust to the room and we have a good time. And what we're enjoying is the blend.
Yeah, and being musical.
Yeah,
I mean, I think we get in this zone of if you're trying to be heard, if you're on stage and you're the one that's trying to be heard instead of thinking about the song and being musical and catering to the song, that's when you become the garage band.
Yeah.
Making a racket.
So bass player and drummer probably affect a lot of that. One thing we do, and I don't think we talk about this as much as just doing it, there's a good relationship between us and the rest of the band. This isn't like bass and drums and then those guys, you know what I mean? It's all relational stuff, and you'll hear this even in band classes. But the sound man has permission to tell us to turn down or use hot rods rather than sticks, and I don't go like, dude, you know, you just don't complain. I mean, you might get a little frustrated sometimes, but you just got to do that. You have to adjust. So adjusting to the room, listening to each other, being attentive to the whole sound of the band. These are all bass and drummer things, because if the bass and drums get out of control, the rest of it's just not going to work. This may be the biggest call that you have as a dynamic duo in a band, is just not to let it get out of control. So, but even when we're playing soft, you have to command the time. So whether it's soft or loud, we're still playing to clicks 90% of the time. Rarely, like in the concert stuff we're playing, we either have drum loops and stems playing with us or a click track. For instance, the click, like if we're doing something like Your Name, which is at 17 beats per minute. As morning dawns and evening fades. Oops, sorry. Songs of praise. So I didn't know the key. That rise from earth to touch your heart and glorify your name. Your name. So the first chorus I just do downbeats and I let Mike play higher. It's a shelter like no other. Your name. Let the nation sing it louder. But nothing has the power to say. Re-intro, but your name. Ba, 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 ba. So this is all just playing music. I'm listening really to the whole thing, but my kick drum is right under that note. So when you're playing really slow, man. Is a strong and mighty town. Now, I play the eighth note this big, but it's not that loud, even with sticks, because I'm feathering. See how light? Now, if I was using sticks, it would be a little louder. But I'm not killing that at all. I do this so everybody sees the time. What up, what, right? How about that? This is the way we hear worship all the time. Your name is a strong and mighty God. So you get the idea. So the fact that because we've done it so much now, that there are times I thought, oh, we're playing with the click. What I was hearing and feeling was the song and the music and the bass and keyboards and everything going on. The more you play with the click, and you as a bass player and drummer get together and make that lock in, that's a really good exercise. If you feel like, man, we're just not grooving, you don't have to look at each other if you're here with your bass player or drummer, but if you just feel like, man, we want to tighten it up, this is a great exercise. Take every worship song you know and get together and find out the metronome markings and just play them and sing them to yourselves. You don't have to be great singers. I mean, I'm not a great singer. I'm just singing so you know where the song is. Right. But you start to hear like, how about that? I didn't realize we're not really lining up, or we get carried away when I do that fill into the solo or whatever.
And another good practice is, I'm way louder than I usually am on stage. I'm never this loud on stage. And rule of thumb, first thing that you do when you're in the studio tracking is if you're rushing, usually you turn yourself down. And that's probably a bad habit a lot of us have, is having our bass amps too loud on stage because we think we need to feel it, which in turn we rush because we're not listening to the rest of the band. So I would vote for everyone bringing your stage volume down, and notice that when you do that, you're going to lock in a lot better. You know, a lot of people are like, well, I need to know what note I'm playing or whatever, and my pushback would be, if you really don't, if you need to be able to hear yourself that loudly to make sure you're not playing wrong notes, then you should work on your scales a little more before, or know the song a little better if you're worried about being a half step off and not knowing it.
Yeah, you should know your...
Yeah, you should know the song.
I'm a closet guitar player, but I know when I'm playing a G, C, D, so on. So be careful of that, and that becomes a thing we've witnessed with bands, and they're like, man, I gotta feel it. This idea, man, it's just gotta feel a thing. Like, I don't know where we got that. Probably if you played in rock
fun.
bands. It is fun.
It's a lot of fun, but yeah.
I mean, I love, okay, for instance, if we were doing, you know, even Your Name Out There would be more like this, you know.
It's a strong and mighty tower.
Yeah, that's... Right? I mean, there is an energy to dynamics. We won't deny that. But when it's not appropriate, don't get hung up on that. I'm keenly aware, like if Paul can't hear good or he's not singing good and we're overplaying, we just kind of like bring it down. And I always use the phrase, play the room. Play the room. So if you're in little rooms, your church is only 50 to 100 people, you don't need concert level. Do you want to be able as a player to do what you want? Yeah, I mean, play at all dynamic levels with whatever instrument you're playing and get to know what it does when you're playing loud, medium, and soft. That's super important. Even when you notice like a difference in the tone of stuff, like if you're digging in too much and so on, like does it go sharp or anything like that?
For sure, yeah, thanks. Bass is not as dynamic as a guitar might be. Like if it's pretty one-dimensional in that. If I just play harder, it doesn't make really it much louder. It just kind of makes things sharp and floppy. So you kind of have, instead of approaching the bass, yes, I mean, if I play very, very soft, you know, it's a little bit different than if I'm digging in. But really anything past, that just gets out of control unless I'm going for that tone. And the harder you're playing, the more inconsistent your playing is probably going to be. So there's a good happy medium of how hard do I pull the string off and be able to play consistent eighth notes or quarter notes or whatever without drifting from the click or from the drums. So to remedy that, instead of like, you know, guitar players, well, they'll jump on a pedal and their tone boosts up. To remedy that situation as far as the dynamics are concerned, I'll play higher on the neck in certain sections of the song, and I use subdivision to facilitate the different dynamics. So less subdivision and higher on the neck generally takes up less space sonically, and it leaves room for the song to grow. And so typically we want the chorus to be more the crescendo. So I'll save my lowest register in eighth notes or whatever the subdivision the chorus calls for. I'll save that for the chorus, and the verses I'll play higher. And a lot of times I'm out for half of the verse, and then I jump in second half up high, and I just kind of save all that for the chorus. And if you have one of those big effects boxes for bass, they're fun, but they're dangerous. You get outside of playing the bass. And I know a lot of bass players are just bored guitar players, so they're always noodling. And there's, like Carl was saying, there's a time and place for that. If we were playing more of a gospel set, there's a little bit more room for us to be flashy. But for the most part, we're, you know, facilitating a song. We're trying to make a platform for people to be able to sing along with. And I had a guy in one class, Because of Your Love. He was talking about that song and how they play it at their church. And it's a small church, probably like this would be his church. It's real small, just a couple folks. And it was him and his wife. His wife plays acoustic, and he plays the bass. And he's like, because of your love. But I imagine that, like, you're sitting there, you see this guy, it's Sunday morning, 10 o'clock, and some guy's playing slap bass with an acoustic guitar, no drums. And I'm like...
How do you normally play that? It's just straight ahead.
It's straight rock, yeah.
You're forgiven.
Right, he is... It's just like...
You should do that for Paul at Soundcheck.
I know. So, just using sensibilities on that, like... What's funny, not to get too heady here, but it's like, sometimes we just need to be aware that sometimes when we approach a song that way, or our instrument that way, it's kind of like, hey, look at me. It gets a little showboaty, like there's ego involved there, and just being aware of that and saying, all right, what if I were on the other side of this microphone on a Sunday morning? Would I want to, like, she's playing acoustic. He probably should just be playing up high and really wide open. There's no drums, so he's kind of covering a little bit more of the rhythm. So because of your love. Imagine acoustic guitar with him.
Strummy, 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 strummy.
So he's kind of cutting his note. You're kind of cutting your notes to like add more pulse. Just using those sensibilities instead of, hey, look at me, I'm playing with my thumb.
And you know, when it's time to do that, then we're all, you know, play what's appropriate for the song. That sounds fundamental, but it's so many times I watch musicians not doing that. Even when we do band training, or I'll go out and work with the team in a church. Okay, yeah, we got you. And then I play with them and we do a long day of rehearsing, and it's a lot of correcting. I feel like, no, that's too much. Normally it's still too much. So how do you kind of how do you learn not to do that? I think we would all, again, on any instrument or any skill, is learn from your peers. I mean, if you're not listening to a lot of music, I would be a bit cautious about that. You should listen. Listen to the recordings that are popular. And don't use the excuse, well, you know, gosh, I really want to do my own thing, or, you know, I want to express myself. And that's all well and good, but there should be a place, too, where you're honoring, I call it honoring the music. So copy your favorite stuff. You know, go back and learn the original recording. How about that? I mean, anybody ever play in a garage band or a wedding band or a dance band? Anybody ever do that kind of thing? Man, the band leader wants you to do what? Here's my 50 songs. You better learn like the lick off of this song and this song and this song and so on, so they recognize their favorite song, right? Whether it's drums, bass, guitar, whatever. It'd be like singing the wrong melody or something. So it's almost expected in regular music. When I do other tours and I'm rehearsing an artist material or do an audition, and which I don't do those much anymore. But anyway, the rule of thumb for me was, because I grew up in bands where I got beat up a lot as a young player, as a drummer, like, man, you gotta learn the song, dude. What's the matter? Like, it was not cool just to be jamming on the songs. So when I've done auditions now, I just copy the people's record, and they're like, man, cool, you know my music, this feels great, they're happy. If they want more, they'll tell you more. They'll say, hey, can you go ahead and do a little more stuff so I can feel a little more energy? Well, that's cool.
Put it in context of, like, you were in band, right, in high school? Mm-hmm. And in college.
Yeah.
So, I mean, was anyone else like started in band, like trumpet or whatever? I was a trumpet player in middle school and in high school. And I put it in that context of, like, if I just started, like, going away from the sheet music in front of me and making up my own, you know, parts to Jurassic Park theme song. The conductor would be like, hey, what are you doing? Like, you're not playing the sheet music. I thought I'd add a couple notes.
I was kind of bored with that, you know.
No, I mean, I try to put that in context with some of the, right.
Right. 20 minutes of a two-bar cadence. Wow, crazy.
Yeah, but if you look at it that way with some of the music, I'm not saying we have to play it like the record every time, but it's a great starting point. And then as that sinks into and you can nail that, then you can start arranging it in whatever way you choose. But if you can't play it like the record.
Like the drum and bass part for like this song. Well, you heard Your Name. You heard Today is the Day. What do you do for Hosanna?
Those are all
Praise
pretty
is Rising.
straightforward, yeah.
Those are, a lot of the music we're doing is straight eighths, quarter notes, building parts. I mean, I do so many songs where it's just 4 on the floor the whole time. I mean, people say, man, why do you do that? I say, well, that's what the music is right now, you know? If Paul wants something different, he tells me. Yeah, I just want to do it for fun.
Yeah. Which one?
Let's play,
Praise Adonai.
Oh, praise Adonai. Sorry.
Good morning.
Now this is more of a groovy tune, so A minor. Praise. Who is like him, lying in the land, seated on the throne. Now in the recording, I played a djembe and some bongos. To the Lord of hosts, but I'm faking it. Praise Adonai, from the rising of the sun to the end of every day. Praise Adonai. The kings and the saints sing praise. Is like him, lying and seated on the mountains bow down, every ocean roars to the Lord. Praise Adonai, from the rising of. So we're just listening to each other, locking that into the drum loop so Paul doesn't rush. Praise. Bass solo, how about that? I just stay out of his way. Guitar solo. So that feel, that's used a lot, that boom. I mean, drummers, I can't say enough about all this subdividing stuff, all the little stuff. That's all got to be in time, in time. If a drummer doesn't subdivide the time, the band's just going to never find it.
Yeah.
And that's where I see a lot of drummers, like a bass player can't make you sound better. So, you know, drummers are going to hear this in the class. I'm sure any class you go to, a drummer's going to talk about time, the pulse, and subdivision. So
Paul, on that song in particular, he doesn't. He thinks he doesn't want to groove that hard on the choruses. He thinks like he was going for something a little different artistically. So he's asked for the bass on the chorus to be do 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 instead of he thinks it gets a little too much groove. So we groove on the verses, and then if you come to the chorus, like you notice he's still grooving, but I'm not.
And I can still play the same thing, and
Right.
it's still framing that, but that gives the chorus a little more.
It takes the edge off.
Yeah,
of
it's threaded through
Yeah.
that way with all those eighth notes. So do that for him. 1, 2, chorus.
Instead of keep going.
3. Now go back. So I'm listening when Mike's digga, if I'm doing. See? So it's single stroke rolls. Everybody says, what do I practice on? Singles, doubles, and paradiddles. That's okay. So next song. This is fun, actually.
Any questions? I'm good.
Questions? No, you're all right. Is this okay?
We got like
You kind of get to see it, peeling back the curtain way back. Our God saves. Sorry, my click's not running. Well, hang on. In the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Spirit, Lord, you come. Gathered. How about that? No bass. I'm interacting with the drum loop. In the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name. To lift up your name, call on our Savior, to fall on our grace. The joyful sound of our offering, as your saints bow down, as your people, we will rise with you, lifted on your wings, and the world will see that our God saves, our God saves. There is hope. Straight A's. In your name. Joyful sound of our offering, as the saints bow down, as the people sing, we will rise with you. Right? Straight ahead rock and roll, happy music. And why are we playing so simply and so really technically? Again, I'm not making it try to be precise and to get your dynamics down and to make your sound work and to fit into that. I mean, that's homework, y'all. That's some trick right there to make that.
y'all.
Sorry, my Nashville
South.
thing. Sorry. Yeah.
I don't know what you said. So, I mean, I heard parts of it.
Can you go out beyond that without messing up?
Without messing up the groove. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, even if, let's say we're playing octaves on that, so, yeah, even if I was just do-do-do. I mean, that's just like, I mean, obviously there's sensibilities involved, like, or preference, but I don't think anyone wants to hear that. And so I try to weigh that, what I'm playing and what, I mean, yes, is it fun to have more movement and like play thirds, like, so I got six.
Yeah, actually, when you start to hear that, can you do that with the song? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and you could play it well and articulate and get all the notes just right. Is it musically helping? One of the things we challenge people with is like that automatically becomes what? Another melody within the
Right.
song, and it distracts from the melody. That would automatically.
Yeah, and just thinking about the way a chord is structured, having a tonic, and we're kind of covering that ground, covering the root note. So yes, there is room for that, but it's got to be very specific. And what happens is we end up just playing pentatonic scales over every change, or we're always grabbing a third. And I just listen to the record. Even United Hillsong has a great bass player. I mean, and he's got some really cool signature parts. But if you listen to it closely, it starts with that, and then he's laying it down during the meat of the song. So they've thought through where we're going to have a place to showcase the bass. In regards to our band, the beginning of
Yeah, when you're doing that, You Have Saved Us.
Yeah, You Have Saved Us
That's his solo, and Praise Adonai. Those
Right.
are the two bass solos of the night, really.
So you play that's got the intro, but if you notice, once I get to the chorus, it's straight eights. And then think about the rest of the band. You've got the guitar player with pedals and textures and all this stuff going on. You got an acoustic guitar, and then you got a piano, and then I'm gonna start deviating from the root note. I mean, it's just there's not a lot of space for that. And
Yeah.
people, when I get pushed back on that, it's like, well, it's it's boring or whatever. It's like, well, then you should be a guitar player. And I'd be surprised those people who say it's boring or they're sick of not being able to be more musical. Most of those guys can't play eighth notes in time. So it's like, if you're going to say that, you got to at least be able to bring it and play like with awesome pocket. And then you can start complaining and find a different genre to play in.
This is the idea, like, even though you're playing the foundational instruments, like drums and bass, we're the basement of this house, right? That has got to be, it's got to be the right stuff, and it's always got to be there every time great, every time in time, and feeling good. And that's what Mike's saying. So be careful, not against stretching, and kind of like people say, can we kind of arrange it for our team? I'm like, okay, go ahead. You know, is it working? And does your worship leader like that? Do they want that energy? If they want that, then give them more. Because I've played in situations, even recordings, where like, I've gotten to where we're all producing, and these guys are saying, hey, no fill there, just make this groove. I'm more into now, after 30 years of playing drums, trying to make a groove feel good, or hit the drum just the same way every time. And does it just feel amazing so that the song just works? Then guys will say, man, can you play? Did a session several months ago. Can you play some more? Go ahead and do some more fills. Oh, sorry. I've just gotten used to like, no, I didn't want to. Just like, oh yeah, this feels great. And you're going to hear that. The drummers are going to get hammered. We're going to do a thing called playing eights, where we play 8-bar phrases without changing anything. That's a lot of what pop music is, and modern worship does that. Now, again, this is not the anti-chops class as much as emphasizing be great musicians overall, whether you play bass, drums, piano, keys, guitar, leading worship. Think musically, think of the whole band. The more I've learned to listen to the other guys, the better drummer I've become. And it kind of takes away that boredom thing that might hit you, like, because if you're only thinking of you, then sure, you're like, man, could I just do something different? But every night, when we're playing the songs and like, man, it's just so great, people are worshiping and these songs are so powerful, we're not just thinking of bass and drums anymore. It's the collective, the Borg. You are being absorbed in the collective. So is that all right? You see how this works? So it's not, the challenge is like owning it every time and making it feel great every time. Yeah, question? Yeah. Sure. Paul, like a lot of worship leaders, I would say, he likes it to be seamless. Yeah. Like a song never really stops. He'll get done, and then there's just some chords hanging over, and Mike and I are just really just whole notes and just
A lot of that,
being colorful.
yeah, a lot of that has to do with the set, how the set is designed. I mean, how they laid out the songs in regards to keys and flow. So that a lot of that doesn't have much to do with Carl and I's role. I mean, yes, at the end of songs we'll linger, but usually there's either a pad or a keyboard player that gets us to the next key or to the next song, or Ben will start the track. Ben's doing, or the guitar player's doing stuff that kind of is more melodic, whereas I'm not over here noodling, playing melodic stuff while Paul's trying to change the song. Like, it usually leans on a more melodic instrument. And Carl's not like transitioning the song by...
Yeah, I'm not doing time things.
Yeah.
I might do colors, so it's all out of time. And he strum. Sharon,
Yeah.
they might say a prayer. Mike's even got a keyboard now where he goes and just starts playing pads rather than playing the bass to create this low pad effect where there's
Take a drink of coffee.
Yeah. And so in the waiting, you're like, okay, what's going to happen? And if it's going into something like You Have Saved Us, like we came out of the first song, and I'll go like, he knows the list is You Have Saved Us, so I'm going like, 1, 2, 3. Then it takes off. So the transition stuff is always this kind of little, oh, we pulled off the highway, stopped off for a cup of spiritual coffee, whatever. Yeah, you want to connect the dots. It's not bam, great song, thank you all very much. Most worship leaders now want something that kind of connects the dots. As a bass player and drummer, think atmospheric, be worshiping, be kind of connected to the moment. Sure, you're doing the job. We're looking at a song list, tempo markings, checking gear if he's got to do some tuning thing different or whatever. So yeah, that's a good point. But what we do foundationally isn't nearly as much as what the other guys would have to play, like a keyboard player, a guitar player.
We got sound check.